Hello, everybody. So it's good to see you all. I see a couple of new faces that I haven't seen before, but I guess that means I'll have to get back to Georgia again to get to know you all. Anyway, today we have a topic which is quite nice to talk about and learn about, which is about Khun Yai, Khun Yai Ajahn, who is the nun that founded our temple. Our temple in Thailand was founded by a nun who was the student, one of the well-known students of Luang Pu, the one who was our meditation master. It was the 10th of September, last 11 days ago, which was the day that she passed away. And in many temples, this is commemorated in some way, shape, or form. So I thought it may be a good opportunity to remember her heritage, what she stood for, and perhaps we start first by who she was. Uh, Now I know that many of you will probably already know her, so I guess this is a bit of a review for you. So I won't spend too much time on her life story, even though there are many interesting parts to that. And they'll talk a little bit more about her teachings as well. So this is Khun Yai. She was a nun or a mechi, which is a form of kind of like a type of nun in Thailand. So first of all, who was Khun Yai? Let us talk about that first. But actually, the word Khun Yai is a respectful title for an elder nun, which is actually used for multiple well-known nuns in Thailand. Because it does happen more often that there are elder nuns who become well known on their own right, on their own accord, and they sometimes they set up their own hermitages, or they set up their own communities in Thailand. And many of them are called Khun Yai. So the full name that she was given, that the name that she carried was Chan. And when later in Thailand, when the when it became obligatory to have a surname, her family chose the name Konok Yung. Konok Yung meaning the peacock's feather. The peacock was her the animal she liked very much. So you can see that in our temple, we still use the peacock feather as her symbol. So that's why in many materials that we use in ceremonies, as well as in altars, which are connected to the person of Khun Yai, you will see peacock feathers, or sometimes only the eye of a peacock feather. So she was born in a middle-class farmer's family, and the unexpected death of her father affected her deeply because she was working in the land and she only knew later about her father passing away. Now, this is because there was something going on in the family. There was a bit of sometimes there were tensions between her mother and her father because her father was a bit of a drunkard. Well, quite much, quite much more than a bit. And because of that, sometimes there were conflicts. And one day, Khun Yai, when she was still a child, she tried to intervene to prevent a conflict between her parents from starting. And then her father cursed her. which was quite a very serious thing to happen even in the present day, but even more so in the past. So she felt that this was something unresolved. And to add insult to injury, when she was a little older, she was working in the land, and then suddenly somebody told her that her father had suddenly passed away. And she had always carried in her mind that she still wanted to somehow finish this chapter, that he had cursed her, and he felt she was still carrying something around. She wanted to ask for his forgiveness, or she wanted to start over with him. So then one day she heard the rumor that Luang Pu, a monk in Bangkok, in the area of Bangkok, which at that time was Thonburi, which wasn't part of Bangkok yet. And Luang Pu was able to contact people in the afterlife. And it was quite interesting for her because she thought, well, that's something quite significant, quite extraordinary if somebody can use meditation to contact people in the afterlife. It would mean that she would be able to contact her father. This was the reason why she made the decision to want to see Luang Pu and to use this as an opportunity to be able to contact her father. With regard to this decision, our deputy abbot in Thailand, Lompo Dattachivo, he said that this is not just something that happened in her life, and that's maybe something not much related to us, something to do with that culture in that time, but it also has to do with her person. And he made a point that just the fact that she chose to really go to Bangkok and to seek out, or to Thonburi to be exact, to Bangkok first and then later to Thonburi, to seek out this monk that she didn't know, all just because she wanted to finish the chapter with her father, to finish the story with her father. That was such a very brave decision, and it also showed that she didn't like to keep things to keep loose ends. She wanted to finish something that she had started. This was her nature. Then when she came to Thonburi, of course, she wasn't familiar with the temple where Luang Pu was staying. So she traveled to Bangkok first. So she thought, if I have some job there, I might be able to. She heard about a place, and she thought, if I have some job there, maybe I can contact people of the temple. And she heard that in this place, in this house, this was quite a well-to-do family. She heard that in this place, in this house, there was a teacher coming often. And this was a lay teacher who taught Dhammakaya meditation. And her name was Thong Suk. At that time, she was not ordained yet as a nun. And her name was Thong Suk. You can see her picture here. She was a very strong woman. But even though she looks like a very strong woman who might be able to work very hard, she was actually quite an intellectual. And she was known to teach many families, even those with high education, in Bangkok and in other areas of Thailand, while still be able to be a great meditator at the same time. This was quite a feat, that she was able to integrate those two things in her life. Thong Suk later became a nun, and therefore we also call her Khun Yai Thong Suk. And Khun Yai Thong Suk is also one of the teachers that we honor in our tradition. And she learned about Dhammakaya meditation. So I mean, Khun Yai Ajahn, Khun Yai Chan, the nun that we talk about today, she learned about Dhammakaya meditation from this person. But in order to do that, she had to become part of that household, that house where Thong Suk was teaching. So she decided to take upon herself the work, which was very humiliating at that time, of a servant in that household. Now, these days, when we think of a servant in a high-class family, like being a butler or something like that, we think of that as a very high-standing job. But in those days, it wasn't. It was considered very low. And because she came from a middle-class family, it was considered quite humiliating for her to make that decision. But she did it anyway because she wanted to learn about meditation. And then she met Tong Suk, and Tong Suk taught her about meditation. And she would find any time she had, any free time she had during the time when she was working as a servant in Bangkok, she always tried to find this time, any time she had, to meditate. Even sometimes sitting on the roof of the house, just meditating, so she'd know that nobody could find her there. Just finding a lot of time to meditate because she was so impressed by this great knowledge and this great skill, this great technique to train your mind. And she soon was able to learn to contact her father. She had at that time not even met Long Po yet, but she was able to learn from Tong Suk. And then she was able to contact her father. And in that way, she was able to ask for his forgiveness, but also he also asked her for her forgiveness. Now, some of you might say, how does that work? You contact somebody in the afterlife through meditation? That's an interesting question, and I'm sure that we can find some other opportunity to talk about that. But today, I would like to talk mostly about the life of Khun Yai and her teachings, or in other words, Khun Yai Chan. So later she and Tong Suk both became nuns. And that was in 1938. She was ordained as a nun in Wat Phak Nam, and she met Long Po for the first time. And then Long Po said to her, "You are late." Like he already knew her, like they had already met before. Of course, in our tradition, this is like an indication that they had been working and meditating together for many lifetimes. Because normally when you meet somebody for the first time, they will not say you are late or something like that. But this was because he already knew her. And he immediately let her meditate together with his advanced students, which was unusual because most of the time people had to go through some training first before they could join the advanced students of meditation. So she was quite an extraordinary person, and Luang Por immediately saw that. Later, when Luang Por passed away, I'm sure that the story can be taught in a much more extensive way, but I'm going to keep it a little bit brief now. So Luang Por was impressed by her sincerity and praised her as unmatched. But after his passing, she continued to teach in Wat Phak Nam, in the temple where Luang Por used to be the abbot. And she would still teach there in meditation. Luang Por had told her that people would come to learn more about meditation, and they would be able to continue the tradition of Dhammakaya meditation. So she had an important role to play to continue to pass down this tradition of meditation. Then two university students, Chayabun Sutipon and Padet Pongsawat, these were two important university students that started to meditate with her. They are not in this picture, which is not very clear anyway. But here is a picture of one of those two students, and he later became a monk. He was the most talented student, and he later became the abbot of our temple in Thailand in the present day. A small house was built at that time by Khun Yai students on the grounds of Wat Phak Nam to teach meditation. And later on, Chayabun who later was to become the abbot of our temple in Thailand, this monk. He graduated at Kasetsat in the university, and then he became a monk shortly after. They then started to work on a temple, started to build a temple by themselves, because the students that she had were quite very good meditators. She had many good meditators, and they felt that the time had come to work together to build something new, to build a new temple. And then a local owner of a land in Pathum Thani, which is close to Bangkok, she gave away her land as a present because she was so impressed by their initiative, by their dedication to this idea of starting a new community, starting a new temple for meditation. So she gave away her land to Khun Yai to build up a temple. But they had to start from scratch. You can see here in this picture that they didn't have much. It was like very simple still. You can see it here. It's still very simple. There weren't a lot of buildings yet. So they're starting to build the first buildings, very, very small budget. This was very, very difficult at that time. And this was the foundations of our temple in Thailand, from which all the branch temples in the world have come from, including Dhammakaya Dorje. They came from this temple, they came from her initiative. At that time, she and the two students, that is Lompa Tamachayo and Lompa Tatachivo in the present day, they all decided to write a book. And this book, it's already available in English translation. It was the book that contained the ideas to start this temple, to start this initiative to build up this temple, so that people could read this book and be impressed by this initiative and support the temple. And this book was called Walking to Happiness, Dön Peสู่ความสุข. And this book is now also available in English, so I can give you a link later on. You can download it for free. So at that later on, the temple as we know it today, Wat Padammakaya, which is the biggest temple in Thailand, if you look at the surface, if you look at the land surface, was gradually arising. So in 1978, the center was given its official name, Wat Padammakaya, and the temple became now recognized under Thai law. And Khun Yai, she very much impressed upon everybody to keep the unity alive, to keep the spirit of working together and meditating together alive. And she was able to develop a culture, and this is what I'd like to say a few things more about. This culture of Khun Yai that was so fundamental to our temple. What were the values? What were the norms? What were the ideals that she set forth? So she, first of all, to start with, when she built up our temple, these are many pictures from the old days. Then when she started our temple, she had three ideals that were always in her mind, and that she thought very important to really get to understand what Dhammakaya is about. And these were the ideals that she really worked on. First of all, to build a true temple, a temple where people would be able to feel happy. They would be able to go there like a sort of sanctuary, a place that is sacred and a place where everybody can feel at home. Secondly, to develop good monks, really monks that were educated, but also knew how to connect with people and to emphasize meditation and practicing the mind, not talking for hours about theory, but actually talking about how to practice yourself to be a good human being, which connects with the third ideal, to develop good people in society. And to indicate her dedication to these ideals, it may be good to tell a short anecdote, short story from that time. Because while they were building this temple, there was quite a lot of issues with budget. There was not enough money to build such a huge temple. Oh, you can, don't worry about the picture. I'm just talking now. So while they were building the temple, the man who would later become the deputy abbot, right? His name at that time was Padet. Padet, he said to Khun Yai, well, I think we don't have enough money to build a temple. How can you build a temple with only 3,200 baht? Which if you calculate to the present day, right? If you take into account inflation and so on, it may amount to maybe at most $200. Well, what can you do for $200? Well, I don't live in America, but I don't think you can do a lot for $200. If you travel pretty far, if you get on an airplane, there's your $200. They're gone. You can't do a lot with $200. You can't even build a house with that money, right? You can't, let alone, I mean, just you can't even you can not buy a car. You can't do anything with that money. So Khun Yai, she said, so she responded to this problem because Padet was very concerned. How can you start a temple with only this small amount of money? But he said, we have a team now. And let me ask you a question in return. If you had to put a number of money or funds on trying to train a person to be a good and responsible person in society, how much money would that cost? Now, that was a difficult trick question, but Padet said, well, that's difficult to say. I mean, even if you invest 1,000,000 baht, like a lot of money, then it's still not sure whether you can really use that kind of money to develop somebody into a good and responsible person. There's no way you can put a number on that kind of thing. Goodness and character, they don't come at a certain price, right? So she said to him, well, if that is the case, if you can't even be sure that 1,000,000 baht is enough to have one person with a good heart, with good character, well, I have 12 people now, which was the first team that started this temple. I have 12 people now. So I am already a multi-millionaire. She said, and then Padet, he was like, okay, you win. So he was like, he didn't know the answer yet to his problems, but he was very certain, he was very confident that Khun Yai believed in the future of the temple. And then later on, any time that he seemed to lack money, that he seemed to not be able to have enough funding, there was always somebody coming. There was always some way. There was always something coming, like the good intentions, the goodness, and also the strength of the meditation of Khun Yai, the strength of her mind. It would always somehow attract people to help, attract circumstances to make it possible to build this temple. So this is a very interesting story, and it shows just how much importance she gave, how much importance she put on that ideal of developing good people in society. It was all about that. She passed away on 10 September 2000, because we have to remember this seems to be like a big step, right? I was just talking about building the temple, and now I say she passed away. It's like a big step that I'm now making. But we have to realize that she was already over 60 years old when she started to build our temple in Thailand. So it was very difficult for any normal person to do that on the age of 60, right? I mean, there's people that retire when they're 60 and when they just sit at home watching Netflix or something. But she was building this temple when she was already over 60 years old. And then later on, she passed away in 10 September 2000. I actually was able to visit Dhammakaya Temple in 1919, in 1999 when she was still alive, but I was unfortunately not able to meet her at that time because she was already, her health wasn't good anymore. So she passed away at the age of 90. She became an important person in the history, and he was the one who established the heritage of our temple, many of the ideals that are so important. So let's just take a look at what kind of things she taught for a moment. Now, I could be talking about this for another hour, but let me just keep it brief and stick to a few topics. First of all, taking care of yourself was something she taught a lot about. To make sure you take care of yourself. People are always very busy taking care of their work, taking care of their family, taking care of their partner and children. And all of that is good, but you have to also spend time on taking care of yourself, really looking at yourself and looking at yourself in the mirror and asking yourself whether you are really taking good care of yourself. She'd always say, "This is your last life." Now, that is an interesting expression because normally in the Buddhist text, when people say it is your last life, it means that somebody has already become enlightened. But in her meaning, in her interpretation, I mean, in the way she used this word and she used this expression, she meant that whatever habits you have, whatever things that you feel you would like to fix, you devote yourself to fixing that. And whatever good habits you haven't developed yet, and you would like to adopt those things in your life, you devote yourself to that because this is your last life. That is what she would always say. You have to look at this life as your last life. This is your final chance to really work on something. That's like the sort of attitude that she would teach. And she, of course, as is common in Buddhism, she would always teach, you are your own refuge. These are the words of the Buddha. You are your own refuge. Atahi atano nato. And this is what she would always say. You have to be able to be a good refuge to yourself, to be able to rely on yourself, to love yourself, and to teach yourself. We don't usually say that in English, to teach yourself. But you could say that it is about learning to talk to yourself, learning to be able to talk to yourself in a way that is constructive and that helps you to grow. She also said that if you understand yourself, it's also a lot easier to understand other people. To understand yourself is the foundation of understanding other people. Now, I talked about this before in Belgium, and then one person, he didn't agree with me. He said, there's a lot of people who understand themselves but don't understand other people at all. But I don't think that's true. I think a lot of people might look like they take only care of them. They are very, okay, let me put it this way. There may be people who are very selfish and it looks like they understand themselves but not others. But do they really understand themselves? Do they really understand what makes a person happy? Because if they would want to take care of others as well. Because when the mind is taking care of yourself, but also of other people, then the mind is happy. It's broad, it's open. So this is true. To understand yourself is the foundation of understanding the other. If you know your own faults and you know how to overcome those faults, you learn to train, to unlearn, to build up, then that is also a foundation of being able to inspire other people. And that is what she taught. She also said that any time, any day, which is similar to what I just said, any day, you should take a bit of time to reflect on yourself. Time passes quickly. Time passes quickly. Days, weeks, and months, they pass by. And we should reflect on life. What have we done? Let's reflect often whether we are leading our lives following our aims. Which things should we do and which things should we refrain from? Are the things we're doing now appropriate for ourselves and our capacity? So with the word, when she said capacity, or in Thai, Thana, she meant the roles and responsibilities that we have. We should reflect often to make sure that we are not conceited. So these are her words. So many of her teachings have been preserved. And there is a book with all of her teachings. And I will send you a link to that, to the website where you can download that book, and also the book that I mentioned before, Walking to Happiness. So these are the teachings that she taught, and they have been preserved. So this is a good point, when we often reflect on ourselves, it's easier to really understand where we're going to, and to understand what's happening. Sometimes we can't really, we're not in really in time. We really can't really follow what's going on in our lives. Everything just seems to happen and we just dragged along. But if we often reflect, even just a moment before you go to sleep, just taking a moment to look at your own lives and where you're heading, it helps so much. And it also helps to look at what you did right and what you did wrong and how to build on that. That's what she meant when she said you should be able to teach yourself or to talk to yourself. She also talked a lot about merit, thinking about merit and doing a lot of good in your life. These are some ways that these are merit, as you know, it's about doing good. So this could be about giving, being generous, or being a good volunteering work, doing volunteer work. Could also be about living an ethical life, making decisions to stick to your moral principles, being responsible for your family and your work. This is also part of that, what she talked about. And then the third one is about meditation. This is also a form of goodness that she very much emphasized. She would always talk to everybody in the temple that meditation is so important. There was a woman that came to see her one day. This woman that came to see her, she was an engineer, or she had some other kind of a profession with a lot of responsibility, and also required a lot of thinking, a lot of processing, a lot of proactive planning. And she consulted Khun Yai, and I don't know, I can't remember if it was a she or a he. I think it was a she, but I can't remember. And she consulted Khun Yai about her problems at work. And sometimes she couldn't fix certain things, she couldn't solve certain things. And then she would ask Khun Yai, what can I do about that? And then Khun Yai, she would say, sometimes in order to fix your problems, you can't use your thinking. You have to step out of your thinking and then still your mind. And then when you look back at the problem, you can fix it. And that is one of those pieces, one of those gems of wisdom that she taught. Sometimes our thinking is very much in going into circles and circles and circles. And we think when we think more, we can solve it. If we just think our way through this, we can solve it. But it's just not always the case. Sometimes we need to just snap out of it. Just meditate, bring your mind to your center, allow yourself to be aware of your center. If you want, you can follow your breath first and then go to your center and just snap out of it for a moment. All of that thinking and all of that problem solving. And then when you get back, the problems, they just all seem so small. When you get back with a still mind, it just all seems so insignificant. And even if it is significant, you can fix it then because you've gained the lightness and the overview, the helicopter view, the overview through your meditation. And that is the kind of things that she would teach. And in short words, but very profound, she was able to teach a lot of people, even people who were much more educated than she was. Because I didn't mention this yet. Well, I didn't emphasize it, but she wasn't formally educated. In those days, it was uncommon for Thai women to enjoy formal education. So she, even though she was from a middle-class family, she wasn't properly educated in the mundane sense of the word. So all of her education came from the temple life, came from her being a nun and studying the Buddhist teachings, Buddhist wisdom. So when you have this kind of background, it's not always easy when the students that come to see you are much more educated than you are in the formal sense of the word, right? If they are educated from a university or something like that, it's not easy. But she wouldn't be afraid of that. She wasn't afraid of that because she knew that the wisdom that she had gained from meditation and her spiritual practice would be sufficient. So let's just look at a few more gems of things that she had taught and before we wrap it up. One other thing that she very much emphasized, of course, is inner and outer cleanliness. She said in 1981, she said, "My love of cleanliness has been a part of me for as long as I can remember. I have fought for a long time to keep cleanliness wherever I go. Cleanliness has become a symbol of this temple. It has contributed to the faith, confidence, and respect of the people who come here. They see this place as a sanctuary and as a serene place to practice meditation. Please do not abandon the way of cleanliness that I have worked so hard to maintain." So this is an important statement that she made, and it also showed in her entire life. So whenever she did something, she was always very mindful of it. Even just throwing something in a trash bin, she would sometimes just put a little paper on it so that it looked more neat. Anytime she did something, she would clean it up properly. And anytime she saw something that wasn't really neat or wasn't clean, she would find the moment. She would find a way to clean that up later. She'd always have this kind of mindfulness about her. And this became part of our temple's culture. So if you are familiar with Thai culture, this is not very widespread in Thai culture, but you can see it in many monasteries. It's more like a sort of subculture in the Buddhist temple where there is a lot of emphasis on cleanliness, on cleaning, and so on. And she very much emphasized this, being mindful and also being very dedicated to any task, anything that you set your mind to. Like in English, there's this expression, anything that is worth doing is worth doing well. Maybe you've heard of this before. Anything that is worth doing is worth doing well. This is the sort of attitude that was set forth by Khun Yai. And you can find this very clearly if you have the opportunity to meet some senior monks of our temple, even just even the abbot there, Lumpi Vichai, he was also one of the earlier generations of monks in our temple. And you can see that this attitude is very much part of these early generations, these senior monks. Even when I had the opportunity as a layperson and later as a monk to meet with the deputy abbot in Thailand, Lompot Tachivo, and also his sister who taught me Thai language. They both of them had this kind of attitude. Anything they set their mind to, they would be very, very, very much dedicated to that. Well, both of them are still alive, but I'm just trying to make a point that they really, whatever they're doing, they put their mind to it. Anything that is worthy of doing is worthy of doing well. She was also a very humble person. Whenever she would teach the students in our temple, when she would teach people at the temple, she would also talk a lot about being humble through your awareness of your speech and action, through your reflection, as I mentioned just now, and also through meditation. Meditation helps you to get to know yourself. Humility is a very important thing in Buddhism. Is in Buddhist text, they call it nivata, which literally means no air, having no air, not being bloated, you could say. And being humble and being modest. In English, it's not exactly the same thing, but I'm just emphasizing this word modesty. I'm just talking about modesty in the sense of being humble. So this is about knowing your own faults, knowing what you have to work on, and knowing that you have to be cautious about those faults. But it also is about being flexible. The traditional image of that is the tree that can go along with the wind. That is the tree that is not that is flexible enough to just go along whatever wind, whatever storm is coming. And such a tree will be able to withstand the forces of nature. But if it's a tree that it doesn't have that kind of flexibility, it might be easy to break or something like that. So this is a metaphor that is very useful. It's not only about it's not so much about looking down on yourself or something like that, but it's about being flexible and also knowing yourself. That is the meaning of humility in Buddhism. So these are some things that she taught. There's a lot more that we can talk about when we talk about her teachings. For example, she would also talk about making resolutions, being mindful, and also creating good karma in your life. But for now, I just leave it at this, because maybe some of you would like to ask a few questions about this topic.